one of my earliest memories is me in Jamaica when I was a kid. I used to like to climb trees and I used to pick mangoes and bananas off my grandfather's tree. And I just remember feeling like I belong here. I was there running around with no shirt on, I'm like 4 years old, picking fruit. That's one of my earliest memories.
When I was as a kid, when I was a small baby, I had 67 cousins and we all were living in a small village. So like it was different. But for my cousin, like my kids, so for my kids, it's like they have no one here.
I remember I was 9 or 10 years old, and my father finally allowed me to go by myself to the dance academy. Because before that, he or my uncle used to go with me because they were afraid that something could happen to me. But then one day he said, "Okay, here's the key, and you can go to the dance academy by yourself." And I was really happy because it meant that he started to trust me. And I remember I was walking down the street and I was alone, and I realized that the city is so big, though it wasn't. And I was picking up flowers, and I think at that time I realized that I belong here. No one is watching me. I have a face of my parents in me, and I can go wherever I want. But then my father said that he actually was looking at me through the window. But at that time, yeah, it was one of the most joyful moments of my early life.
Always wanting to leave. Yeah. Even as a little kid, I was just like never feeling really like this was a place for me to be. Always wanting to expand out and move somewhere else, be somewhere else. Always having that feeling.
Yeah, so I guess the memory is this feeling that I get when I after a very long time of not seeing these people, then seeing them again. So this is the feeling for me of coming home. The security, and I don't know, it's a very happy feeling, very positive, feel secure, and yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's kind of quite different, I think, from what a lot of people would imagine. I went to Edinburgh when I was 22, and the second I stepped off of the bus into the city, I immediately felt like I was home, even though I'd never been there before.
So my bedroom was at the very end of our house, and it wasn't. And I always used to, when I was a kid, when I got to the top, and when I was a bit older, when I got to the top of the stairs, I would like run down the corridor to my room because I always felt like uncomfortable in the corridor. And then I got to my bedroom, I was like, okay, it's okay here. And it wasn't until like a couple of years ago, I was just talking with my family, and someone brought up my room and was just like, oh, they called it the creepy corridor, and I was like, what? And they said, yeah, they were like, everyone, my mum and both my sisters were like, we got this really just a weird sense from your room, like there was just a bad presence there. And I was like, well, that's good. Like, why was I left to live in that horrible room? Thanks, Mum.
I think of Table Mountain, because when I open the door or open the curtains in the lounge, the first thing I see is Table Mountain. I think of corn porridge. I think of singing. My family and I used to sing every Friday evening to welcome the Sabbath.
The most primitive answer is where my family is, because my family means a lot to me. And also, home is where my stuff is, because like now I live in dormitory, but occasionally I can say to my friends, "Oh, I'm home," or "I'm going to home." And they're like, "Are you going back to your country?"
Home to me is, thinking about family, thinking about. When I think about home, I think about like past memories and things that kind of built who I am, that type of thing.
For me, home is mainly people. People that I really appreciate very, very much in my life. It's not very connected to a certain place. But yeah, it's just the people. And if the people would be somewhere else, that would be where home would be then.
Home is the place where I put my head at night.
Home is where my children would be. Wherever they will be, wherever they would want to go, if they do not want to stay in Korea anymore, that's where I'm going to be. And that's home.
First, it should be a physical place, because I have a physical body. So it doesn't have to be a certain place where you have to be, but where I am presently right now.
A physical space where I feel safe and loved and welcome.
Home is Guguletu. Home is Guguletu in Cape Town, which is in South Africa. Home is where I grew up. Home is where my mom, brother, and sister and grandmother were. Home is the place where I go to after I finish working. Home is where I can be myself. Home is where I can snap off my bra and throw it into a corner. Home is where I don't have to pretend who I am. Home is where I can speak my mind. Home is where I put my head down and sleep.
To me, home is wherever you make it. I don't necessarily feel a connection with some of my previous homes that I've lived in. I think it's really where you're living at the time and where you, I guess, set roots down in the ground.
I grew up in the States as a military brat. My father was military. He actually lived in Korea and other places growing up. And we lived in Panama and we lived in California. I was born in Delaware. He's from Jamaica and his parents are from Cuba. So it's kind of a conglomerate of different lands. So growing up and moving and always being asked where you're from, the answer was more like about where I was most recently from. And so I'm here in Korea after 5 years, and I'm most recently from San Antonio, Texas, because I lived there last and for quite a while. But before that, I was from Panama, and before that, I was from California. So I'm just from places.
No, I don't feel the need. And plus, you can find there are lots of methods, procedures to go to some other country or some other place and work without changing your citizenship. So that is the last part. If you really want to have some sort of tax, rebate, then only you go for citizenship. Otherwise, I don't believe that working in some other country requires you to change your citizenship. So since I'm not working yet, I believe this is what happening right now. But again, so I think I'll keep my Indian passport with myself.
It was scary because I wasn't born here. You'd think that you will spend your life where you were born, but something else happens and you are pulled to a place that you wouldn't even imagine yourself to be.
It should be an easy question because I am 100% Kazakh, but honestly, I don't look like Kazakh. And even in my country, people say that, what is your nationality? And they are really surprised when I say, like, I'm Kazakh 100%. So, being pure Kazakh, I don't feel that I represent where I'm from.
Like the way I belong to Pakistan, and it represents me. Specifically, I will go slightly more regional. Like I belong to the tribal areas on the border of Afghanistan. So, like, it shaped my whole character actually. The way I look, the way I talk, the way I dress. It's all because of this homeland effect actually. Yeah. For us, it's slightly confusing if we go for this deep roots because my grandfather was he graduated from India, which is now called India actually. It was the same place. So they migrated from Afghanistan, and then he graduated from some university in India, which is now India. At that time, there was no India in Pakistan, and now we have these different borders.
Well, it's the biggest country and the strongest country in the world 40 years ago. It was. It's the former Soviet Union, well, former, not existing Soviet Union at that time. So I was born in the biggest and the strongest country, and I could relate to 15 other countries that were part of it. And then when I was in my elementary school, maybe, all of a sudden this all, well, not really all of a sudden, but it collapsed. And then from having the mind of this country, I became coming from this country all of a sudden. So it was different from then.
Yes, but I think that's fine, and it's nice to be curious, and even if you want to be proud of like where you're from, that's a beautiful thing too. But I think it shouldn't overshadow who you are, you as an individual, because you exist here and now, and it's not your ancestors' life that you're living, it's yours.
You were born in a place you have really attached to that. You're attached to that place, right? So depends how long you have been there. In my case, for example, for 29 years, I would say I was there. I grew up. I did my studies there, more or less. Not all of it, of course, but you have your family. You have your plenty of friends since you were a small kid. So you are attached to that. And the land, I would say in that sense, the land is defined in a way that you have the majority of your memories come from a region from somewhere on earth that you're attached to that. Many people think that way because I would say that has probably 2 or 3 different reasons. One of them would be just because they were born there and they're attached to that. Their family, they grow up there, they studied there. Sometimes it's a political reason they are attached to the homeland because there are some issues they want to solve that problem, or sometimes they are really attached to the people. Depends their nation, they want to solve some problems, or they are really strongly attached to that because they want to be attached to something which gives them an identity, I would say, to be highlighted.
It's sad because I can tell this thing. When I was abroad, a group of Japanese students came to me and started to speak in Japanese with me. So they didn't ever question for a moment that I am not Japanese. And I said, okay, I'm abroad, and yeah, that's reasonable maybe. But when I started to receive these questions in my country, I'm like, what's wrong? Why?
Mentally, yeah, there's always someplace else that I want to go. I want to live in different parts of the world and experience different cultures and see different places.
You could always be a little bit detached and see other things as well. That's what I try to do. And not really be very, very strongly insistent that I'm really attached to this, because you don't see the other stuff as well. So that's what I think.
I was brought up in I was born out of wedlock, and in a mixed race couple situation in South Africa at a time in South Africa where it was illegal. So I didn't really know my father, and I was brought up by the white side of my family. So I identified as a white Caucasian person, and yet physically I'm quite not that. And I grew up in a very small town, 45 minutes outside Johannesburg, and I was brought up by my loving grandmother, who was a woman of her time, you know. And we went through a lot. South Africans went through a lot during that period of time. And as a child growing up, you don't quite understand the effect it has on you when you want to be friends with all these people that look different and notice how different you look. You start talking like them, you start walking like them, people ask you all sorts of questions, and you start to wonder, why am I different? Why can't I be like them? And it's taken me a long time to come to terms with that and be okay with myself. Be okay with the fact that I have different hair and my lips are different sizes and shapes, you know? I think what my experience of South Africa has taught me is that there's nothing wrong with being different. There's nothing wrong with being different, because underneath it all, we're all the same. But I think the grayness comes in when people think that their difference is better than someone else's difference. So I think, you know, it's beautiful that we have these different sounds coming out of our mouths and different ways of waking up in the morning and loving each other. That for me is quite unique. That's what I actually love. I have friends from all different walks of life. I, in fact, really like it when I see a different perspective on things. But I think the grayness starts when people think, oh, that's not so good. What we do is a bit better. And that's when all sorts of things happen.
Since I go to different places, and you know, looking like this, growing up in Europe, it's not really common to have a face like this in Europe. So since I was a little kid, always asked, where are you from? I'm like, I live here. No, where are you really from? Like, I live here. And so this question, where are you from, is just, I can't even count how many times I've heard it. And now this is my 18th year in Korea. And in a homogeneous society as Korea is, I will always be a foreigner until I die. So, and I meet a lot of people. I'm very active. So every time this, where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you from? It comes up, and I have my own answers. So I would say, sometimes I would say, I try to live as a global citizen. Sometimes I would say, in details, like, yeah, I was born in a country that doesn't exist anymore, and then I lived in others, and now I ended up being an immigrant. But the one that I really like, the answer that I find really speaking to me right now, is I come from my experience.
Leaving home did that. Leaving South Africa did that. Yeah, and I think it's a process of self-discovery, because I think whenever I think, I'm at ease with that. I'm at ease with that. When I experience a bit of prejudice, it comes back softly, not as strong as it used to be. It doesn't affect me as much, but sometimes it simmers, and I just have to remind myself, okay, this person doesn't know me. They don't know my past. They don't know what I've been through or who I am. So that's okay.
I came to Korea and I started learning more about myself than I could have in my own home. I felt so many shackles come undone outside of my ancestral home. I think I was free to explore who I really was without the usual expectations of home. Being a woman, a Black woman in my society, in my home, I felt free to explore who Sashai really is.
I don't have any particular need or want to live in the countries that I'm from. I think one of them I'd feel more trapped in, and one of them I'd feel trapped actually in both of them, I think, going back home. When I think of going back home, because when I left home, I was really stressed out. I had a lot of problems. I felt it was really hard for me to survive, and I struggled a lot. So I kind of associate going back home with this like struggle for survival, and I don't want to go back to that. So like, and I'd rather make something of myself somewhere else, and then maybe go back home at some time a different way. But right now, I just associate it with like struggle and survival, and not where I want to be.
So people outside our country meet different sort of people. So they make perception. Like obviously, if I came to Korea, I met 10 people. I made perception first. Then I started changing it. So this is what applies to India. Also, people do have misconception, lots of misconception. But again, it's our duty to verify them, or to just tell them, no, that's not happening right now. So everything evaluates, everything change, and since everything change, the things related to them also change. So there are misconceptions, but again, it's the responsibility of the citizen of a country to, change them and tell them what's actually happening.
In my definition of homeland is the place where you just open your eyes for the first time, and then you start learning to crawl and walk there, and then you buy the first candy from the shopkeeper there, and then you go to the school there, and you make the first friend of your life. This is how I define the homeland, irrespective of what kind of DNA you have. But this is how it comes in your brain, the images of your childhood, and then you go to high school and college. It goes on. But it influenced a lot. I'm originally, if if I look for my ancestor, they migrated from Afghanistan. But I was born in Pakistan. So for me, my homeland is Pakistan because I was born there. I got my product there.
I belong to India, and if you want to define India, we can simply say that it's a place where happiness matters. Whatever you do throughout your life, whether you educate yourself, whether you earn, whatever you do is just to make yourself happy, to make people around you happy. Because what you need in the end is like people looking forward to you, that you gave them reason to be happy. This is what people look forward to basically in India.
Homeland. I guess I would have to differentiate home from homeland, because home could be wherever you are, and homeland, I suppose, is where you're from, where you feel most deeply connected to. My homeland, I think I feel like America is my homeland in many ways, or just like North America, the continent. But specifically, maybe Jamaica. I feel like that's my homeland.
Homeland is just where I happen to be from, like really Homeland is, to me, is just like the planet. The entire planet is our homeland, we're all in it together type of thing.
If you really talk about the physical meaning of that, which is the land, I would say is a place that you were born, you grow up, and you have still your family there, right? You have plenty of experiences, plenty of memories. And as I said, sometimes good memories, sometimes bad memories as well.
So for me, that would be just a formal definition. So what I would just imagine what other people would think that means. So I would define it in a way that homeland is the place where you grew up, where you spent the first few years of your life, where you connect most of your memories to.
It's a very difficult question, actually. Having lived in two countries, it's kind of difficult to define which one is my homeland. I'm almost half of my life here, and I live the other half there in the Philippines. So what could be homeland except where I would be standing? So I guess I can say that right now, my homeland is Korea.
I guess homeland is a mix of where you're born and where you grow up, I guess, and probably where your parents grow up as well. If they move to a different country, then they're going to carry that with them, and that will be part of how you're brought up. So I feel that's part of your homeland as well. Homeland to me implies where you're from. Even if you become something different, where you're from will always stay the same.
I think with the direction that our world is going in right now, with all of this global village and people basically being born in one place, raised in another, working in the third, getting married in the fourth, having children in the fifth, this whole stable, fixed idea of homeland is going to change. And it's changing already. I mean, look at me. Like my identity is just blurry. You cannot just put it in some kind of box, and there are a lot of people like me. For those who are born in one place and then stay there and live there, and for them it's easier to say, yeah, this is my homeland.
Homeland for me, my understanding would be quite boring. I think it's simply where you're from, where you originated. That's my idea of homeland. For me, homeland also serves as a marker. Whatever you think about that, your opinions aside, it gives a person a reference, kind of. Whether it's negative or positive, it gives a person a reference to your values and your culture.
Homeland is where I was born. So there's history involved, where I come from, where I belong, who I am, where if I step out into the streets, there's a familiar language, there's a familiar buzz, there's a familiar smell. Homeland is where the struggles of the people are my struggles. They are familiar to me.
Homeland, I think homeland is where you're from, where you're born. For me, I think that's two places. I was born in Tunisia and spent a few years there, and then after that I lived in the US for most of my time. And I consider both of them my homeland. I consider maybe America a little bit more of my homeland because I spent most of my life there. I'm more culturally American. I speak English, even though Arabic was my first language. I don't speak it anymore on the same level. So that's, yeah, I consider both of them my homeland, but I consider them myself more to be from the US.
Define belonging.
I do not have any restrictions in my head concerning belonging, because I don't belong anywhere, so everybody can be my friend. I think, well, that's what I think. I think it's a kind of, it's a feeling of satisfaction, a certain kind of, it's a certain feeling of satisfaction that you feel. But I'm looking for it, so I don't know. Yes, of course. So I'm searching for the satisfaction that you get when you finally feel that you belong somewhere.
Not grounded, but sometimes you have the feeling you belong to that, or you have. Yes, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, and that goes back to the fact that how the culture is different from yours, and how even though I try to be really open to anything, but sometimes some cultures are a bit really restrict, and they are very difficult to be understood for someone else from outside. So I would say, yes, some country I really feel that, but some country no.
I feel more involved, like the people in the local shop or the local pizza place, they know me, they say hello, and when I'm walking to school, I see the kids who go there and they wave, and it's just those kind of things that wouldn't in a million years happen in London, I guess, because you don't know your neighbors and you're usually working 2 hours away from where you live. So you don't get that sense of community, I guess.
The only person who can really deeply make you feel like you belong is yourself. So if you belong with yourself and you belong with in your own skin, then it doesn't replace unconditional acceptance from other people, but it can, in some cases, substitute, if that makes sense.
So I really want to belong to this planet, and I mean that. because I want to be able to see people in different places, in different countries, going through experiences that I haven't experienced myself, and be able to connect to them, to feel them, to have questions about them, and willing to understand what they're going through.
I think a lot of people, it's very easy to reduce a person to just where they come from or the way they look, but it doesn't say anything about how they feel on the inside, or how they would like to be.
Proud of where I'm from? No, I'm not proud of where I'm from. I mean, I would choose to not be from two horrifically imperialist racist societies, but I don't know if that's what you're going for or not.
Of course, I'm proud of my country because, I mean, technically, if you see that we have basic colors, that is total number of 12, but I have more than 12 states in my country with different language, different food, different culture, different festivals, which obviously give you a colorful aspect of people around you.
No, I'm not proud or ashamed or anything. I feel like where you're from is so arbitrary, and I had nothing to do with what Jamaica is, and I can't take any pride for the state it's in. I love Jamaica. I think it's a beautiful place, and I love the people there, but I could never be proud to be from there. And I also don't feel any pride or shame in being American or anything. I'm just, I'm from there, and I don't know. Pride is such a strange word, right? Because what do we mean when we say I'm proud? Like, I'm from there and I'm glad I'm from there and I feel like it's better.
I'm a South African with, when I say that, I mean that in the greatest sense. I mean, I am a South African. You can't wrap your finger off the bat where I'm from or who I am and what culture or language I subscribe to until I open my mouth, obviously. But yeah, I'm a South African. Quite proud of that, which is not always the best thing. Yeah, maybe that's also the where I'm from and my grandmother's teachings. I'm very, very proud of where I'm from because I think it's a country too, and it's a part of the world to be proud of.
Proud for me, just being attached to a piece of land doesn't exist actually. I don't think that way. And proud in general is a kind of, I don't like that word at all. Because sometimes you have no choice from where you were born. There is no choice on that, right? It happened, right? You were born somewhere. Some people are born in a very, very poor country. Some people in very rich country, very good country, very bad countries in the sense of conditions right now. But that doesn't give you a label. That doesn't tell you that when you say I'm from that region or that country, people wouldn't. Well, unfortunately, people do that. But anyway, it gives people some kind of image, and they don't really know you, but they judge you at the first time you say I'm from this region, for example, or it gives you a good impression or bad impression, depends where you come from.
But pride, I don't know. I don't know if I can be proud of anything I didn't choose.
So the proudy thing, and you can say sometimes we are a kind of we call it in our languages, we are coded actually through mass media and TV and other things, that to love our country and homeland. That is different. They're two different cases. So always changes, it always evolves with time and travel. The more you travel, the more you learn. But yeah, of course, the major impact on your life is from the early age, yeah, where you spend your time there. So there's nothing bad about to love your country and to be proud of it. But if you're imposing it on others and like telling people like, no, I'm better, I belong to a better place, then it's not good at all.
Apart from the fact that we belong to different country, we have different citizenship, what country means is a family which you have around, and which you make effort to make happy. If you're able to sense that people around you are happy and they are really looking forward up to you, that you are going to do something good for them, is what Homeland is.
I think there's something so valuable in feeling like a global citizen. I would not trade that for anything.
Okay, Stell is a person who lives in Korea. She explores every other culture. She tries to understand people, not countries, not homes. I'm trying to understand people, what they are, who they are, what they'd like to do. It's not just a where, it's also who.
Peacemaker. This is my hope. This is what I'm trying to do. This is what I'm learning to do. This is what I want to be. I want to be in peace.
Can I be somewhat cynical? Lost. No. Lost. Yeah, lost.
Love is about discovering who you are and embracing all of you, your faults, your dreams, your successes, and then being brave enough to find out what you can do, not only for yourself, but for those around you. So Sashai grew up being a very self-centered little girl, thinking, the world owed her something. But I've since learned that what you make of life depends on how much you're willing to give to your family, to give to your friends, the work you're doing, how much of your heart you want to give to it. There's no beautiful life without sacrifice or letting your heart bleed a little bit for something. So I've learned to be brave. I've learned to set out and find the truth that speaks from my heart and live it so that others around me can be kind of liberated to live their truth.
Well, I hope I never have children. But I think that I would, if I had children or nieces and nephews, I'd want them to think of home as the relationships and the people that are around them rather than a specific place. And I would want them to experience different homes and different cultures, just because you can be more a part of the world, in my eyes, if you're not stuck in one place and staying in one place and staying in one small bubble. I think your home can mean so much more when you spread yourself out in the world.
You are home. 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 You are home.
sweet, sweet soul of celestial origin. You are the infinity of where my soul begins. You are home, the beginning of me.
Take me home, wherever